Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day number 1140, 1140, Saturday, May the 23rd, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay. Let's start right here. Okay, so yesterday, Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray, the director of the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, has announced that he is launching an investigation into the Flynn investigation by the FBI Inspection Division. So the FBI is going to investigate itself. That's basically what he's telling us. Now, he says that this is what he refers to as an after-action review. A little late to the game, don't you think? So, what is it that suddenly brought about this this epiphany with Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray to have a little investigation? Well, I think you can sum it up in two words. Jeff Jensen. Jeff Jensen. That's right. Attorney General Barr appoints Jeff Jensen to look into the Flynn matter, and in a matter of 2 months, he unravels the whole thing, pretty much. And then he goes to Attorney General Barr and says, hey, I think this was a bad deal. I think we need to dismiss the case. That's my opinion, and here's the evidence that I think proves that. Then Attorney General Barr, just to make sure, goes to his other top U.S. attorney that he just appointed, who's over all 300 prosecutors in D.C., and he says to him, take a look at this, and what do you think? And he replies, yeah, I mean, based on what I can see here, I think I also agree we should dismiss the case. Now, this was all done in a period of about 2 months. While Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray, for the past more than 2 years, has had every bit of this information, and who has sat on it, hidden it from us, and from Michael Flynn, and from the court. So clearly, Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray is feeling the heat. And the heat is on him because of Attorney General Barr appointing a real serious U.S. attorney, Jeff Jensen, who actually did roll up his sleeves, get his hands on the documents, review the case, and reach a conclusion. And he had the stones to tell Attorney General Barr, I think we should dismiss the case. It's a fraud. Now, this has all made Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray look really, really bad. And he's taking a lot of heat from a lot of people. Not just the president, but a lot of people. And he's probably feeling like, I may not make it until November. Trump may get rid of me before that. And, a guy like Christopher Wray wants to leave on his own terms, because he can go back to his law firm down there in Atlanta with his good friend Silly Sally Yates and pull down, a 7-figure income. So it's important to pad his resume with this FBI director job. That's the only reason he's there. He's a useless bureaucrat. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything, and we can see that from this time period, except for cover up. So now that he realizes that he simply can't keep the cover up going on anymore, because between Durham, Barr, Jeff Jensen, and others reporting on this story, and with Rick Grennell over there declassifying and releasing everything, and with Grassley and Graham's committee and all the other people, Nunes and all the rest, they got a guy in there now, Grennell, soon to be Ratcliffe, who is finally going to grant the request for all these documents. No Shit Sherlock Wray knows that the truth is all coming out, and it's not inconceivable that at some point down the road, someone's going to start asking the question, wait a minute, Wray has been sitting on this stuff for a very long time. He's allowing Flynn, just like he allowed Trump and all the people around Trump, to be put through the ringer on a fraud. And he's been hiding it and covering it up. I mean, he could be facing civil liability. Now, I doubt if he would face criminal liability. I don't expect Durham and Barr to indict No Shit Sherlock Christopher Wray. But certainly when Michael Flynn, once this case is finalized at the criminal level and it's over, Michael Flynn is going to have a long list of individuals with whom he is going to start filing civil lawsuits. And Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray does not want to be in the crosshairs of a civil lawsuit that will be filed by Flynn, because you can be absolutely sure, you can take it to the bank, that Michael Flynn, as soon as this case is over, I'm sure that Sidney Powell is going to inform Flynn, which he probably already knows this, that you have been wronged by these individuals and the U.S. government. Now, you can't sue the government, but you can take these individuals to civil court, and you can sue them. And that's exactly what he's going to do. And I'm sure Sidney Powell is going to refer him to a very good attorney who handles these types of matters. And Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray realizes at this point that Flynn, that he cannot cover this stuff up anymore, and that Flynn is going to be exonerated. The case is going to be dismissed, as he's going to go away, and the next move is going to be that Michael Flynn is now going to go seek some justice from the civil court system. And that will come in the form of money. Lots and lots of money. Flynn literally could take dozens of people into civil court and win. Most of these will be settled out of court. And Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray does not want to be in the crosshairs. So between Jeff Jensen making him look bad and look weak, and everyone now, the president and other people now calling for him to resign because he's so ineffective and quite honestly corrupt, he's also facing possible civil litigation. Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray knows the game is up. Now, I have never heard of the this office. What's it called? I didn't write it down, but the name of this group within the FBI that does these internal investigations, it's not the Inspector General, it's some other internal group. And again, it's just the FBI investigating itself, and the person who is over this group is called Tracy Page, P-A-I-G-E. Tracy Page is the one who heads up this organization or group within the FBI that is sort of a watchdog within the FBI. And of course, we know what a watchdog within the FBI actually is. It's just another gatekeeper. Many, many gatekeepers. And that's exactly what this is. So, Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray says that they seek to evaluate the relevant facts related to the FISA's, start over. Wray says that this action review is to evaluate the relevant facts related to the FBI's role in the Flynn investigation and determine whether any current employees engaged in misconduct. Now that's interesting. Whether any current employees engaged in misconduct. Well, I imagine there are some current employees engaged in misconduct, but most of the big fish have either been fired or have quit or what have you, or gone from the FBI. He knows that. And just the idea that he's going to evaluate the relevant facts related to the FBI's role in the Flynn investigation and determine whether any current employees engaged in misconduct. Clearly, they engaged in misconduct. And it shouldn't have taken this long for this type of an investigation. A lot of these people are already mentioned in the IG report. Many of these people have come out through other investigations and other releases of documents. What this is Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray trying to cover his ass by being able to say, hey, I fully cooperated with the IG. I fully cooperated with Attorney General Barr and John Durham. I even launched my own internal investigation. This is just a cover your ass moment for Christopher Wray to cover his six in case he gets dragged into court in a civil lawsuit, which likely could happen. Or maybe he thinks he's going to save his job with this meaningless gesture that comes far too late. Now, the second thing he says is to evaluate any FBI policies, procedures, or controls implicated by the Flynn investigation and identify any improvements that might be warranted. Here we go again. This is very similar to the last thing that he did. To identify any improvements. In other words, make some new policies, make a few changes, a few rules. He's missing the point. If the individuals that are at the FBI, the corrupt individuals at the FBI, were breaking rules, laws, policies, procedures, and all these other things by the gobs, and they face no repercussions, no penalties, then why should they give a damn about any more rules, regulations, policies, or procedures? They just violate them too, because there's no consequences. So this is just another face-saving measure. This guy, Christopher Wray, I mean, he's out of touch, man. This guy literally has been in the bureaucracy for so long that he is not able to think in any other way. When these people get into these bureaucracies, they become one and the same with that entity itself. These people no longer look at themselves as like, we have a job, we all have a job, and we see ourselves as employees of a company or a corporation or what have you. But we don't see ourselves as being, one and the same entity. But when these people get into these bureaucracies in government, they begin to feel like they are one and the same. So to tarnish the FBI by telling the truth about the crimes they committed, they're tarnishing themselves. And this is a guy who, like most of these people in this position, bureaucrats like this, it's a resume padding exercise so that he can go into back to the private sector in a couple years with credentials, former FBI director, and automatically his pay triples, quadruples. He's now a 7-8-figure lawyer. He went from a 6-figure lawyer to a 7-8-figure lawyer because of his credentials. Now saying FBI director, former FBI director. This is all this is to Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray. And he knows that if he were to come out and do the right thing and tell the truth, that his friends down at this law firm in Atlanta, where he's going to go when his term is over, would not welcome him back. Those are his friends. They're deep state people. They're Democrats. They despise Trump. He can't go back to his old law firm, having just dropped the goods on the people who tried to frame Trump. Remember, Silly Sally Yates is one of their top attorneys down there as well. And there's others. So, this is just more total BS by Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray. And how do we know that? How do we know that? We know it because he doesn't say a single word about the single most important issue surrounding all of this as it relates to the Flynn Kislyak phone call and the Flynn investigation. He never says anything here specifically. The only thing that's really super important here at this point, because most of the other things have been revealed by the IG or will be revealed through investigation by investigative journalists and by Durham. What is most important, what Christopher Wray should have been most focused on, if he really wanted to actually do something, would be to say, today I am announcing that I am going to get to the bottom of who leaked the Flynn Kislyak phone call. That is a crime which carries a 20-year jail sentence. And it came from someone in the FBI, either directly or through an intermediary. And had to be someone very high level, because they're the only ones who were privy to this information. If Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray was actually serious, that would be his total laser focus, which should have been his laser focus when the day that he took over. Who leaked the Flynn Kislyak phone call? Period. Forget about whether it was unmasked or not unmasked. Forget about whether he said anything wrong or didn't. Forget all that. The one thing we know for sure was a major federal crime was to leak the phone call. If Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray really wanted to do something impactful that really matters, that's really important, that is what he would focus on. He says nothing in his statement about that, and I can assure you he's not going to touch it. And I can also assure you that he and other people, certainly around the top tier of the FBI, probably DOJ, know exactly who leaked that phone call between Flynn and Kislyak. There you go. Everything you need to know about Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray. I still think that if he lasts till the day after Election Day 2020, I'll be very surprised. But I can assure you that if he does last that long, the day after Trump wins re-election in 2020, Wray's gone, and he knows it. So he may resign before that. Again, this is a resume-building exercise for No Shit Sherlock Wray. And we know he's not serious because the number one most important thing that he needs to get to the bottom of is who leaked the call, and he says nothing about it. That's how we know it's all a charade. He's a despicable son of a bitch. He knows everything that was done to these innocent people, including the president. And he let it all happen. He's been sitting on the evidence. Along comes Jeff Jensen. Boom. In 2 months, he gets to the bottom of it. Wray could have done this a long time ago. Why didn't he? Speaking of the Flynn Kislyak phone call, Rick Grennell sent out a tweet yesterday to just let us know that he is going to be releasing the Flynn Kislyak phone call. He says that there are several parts to it and that not all the parts are under the control of the DNI. But for the parts of it that are controlled by the DNI, he is working on that declassification process now. And he says he expects that the other parts will also be declassified and that they will be releasing the Flynn Kislyak phone call. That's what he's working on right now, likely before Ratcliffe even takes over. And Ratcliffe will be sworn in next Tuesday. So that means that if Rick Grennell understands this correctly as far as how this process is moving along, that we could likely see this declassified phone call released before Tuesday. So that means today being a Saturday, maybe they'll release it today, Sunday, and Monday's Labor Day, or Memorial Day, I mean. So, I don't know. Maybe it will come out in the next couple of days, but Rick Grennell basically saying in his tweet that yes, that's coming. Oh, not just that, much more. And what's holding up the release of more documents that people are requesting is it just simply takes time to go through this declassification process. They need to know what the documents are that are being requested. Then they need to find out who's in the custodian of those, because the DNI is not always the custodian. Sometimes it's the FBI, sometimes it's the DOJ, sometimes it's somewhere else, Treasury or somewhere else. DOD, could be anywhere. So he can only control what he has custody of. So, and it takes time to go through this. And this is essentially what Grennell is saying. But there's much more to come. And once Ratcliffe gets in there, Grennell's just going to simply hand it off to Ratcliffe, and he'll continue where Grennell left off. And, of course, we certainly hope that Grennell is going to be placed somewhere within the matrix where he can continue doing the excellent work he's been doing. Now, let's focus just a little bit more on this Cover Your Ass letter, because it's been really a hot topic for the past 10 days or so that we've been talking about it. And you hear various theories as to, who this letter was supposed to cover. And I don't know. I mean, to me, unless I'm missing something, it seems to me pretty obvious who the Cover Your Ass letter was supposed to protect. To me, it's Obama. I mean, the Cover Your Ass letter, she's pretty much saying it's a letter that's covering Obama. And not just Obama himself, but the senior executive level, the president, his cabinet members, including Susan Rice. And we know that it was Obama's fixer lawyer that was representing Rice, and we're now told that it was the White House counsel that told Rice to write the letter. So, I mean, I don't think it's all that tough to see whose ass they're covering here. They're covering Obama's ass, which tells me it was directed by the White House counsel. And I think that what happened was probably based on the Strzok and Page email, where Strzok tells Page that essentially he's learned from Priestap that it wasn't a good idea that Clapper went over and briefed Obama on the Flynn Kislyak phone call and showed him the transcript. And Priestap is telling Strzok, that puts the White House in a bad situation. At which point Strzok is telling this to Page, and Page comes back to him and says, "Well, it was going to be in the CI anyway, in the briefing anyway." So there's a bit of an issue there. So this tells us that somebody got rattled. Obama or someone around him, Rice or someone, got very rattled and probably sought legal counsel on it. And they probably said, "Yeah, Mr. President, this could make you vulnerable. My suggestion is you find some way to distance yourself from it." And I think that that's when the White House counsel said, "Why don't you have Susan Rice or someone write a cover your ass letter, something that covers you." It's not going to work, obviously. I mean, no one really believes it or buys into it. But I think but this letter also does something else. It doesn't just cover Obama's ass and Rice's ass. It actually, in a way, puts the blame on Comey. It kind of puts the blame on Comey. It's an effort to cover Obama, but at the expense of Comey. They're throwing Comey under the bus. And that takes us back to a testimony that Comey gave after this briefing happened. So what this tells us is that Comey figured it out when this cover your ass letter was revealed, or when he found out about it. And he probably found out about it pretty soon after it happened. And he probably thought, uh-oh, they're throwing me under the bus. So here's what Comey did in response. In a testimony what he gave, where he said, quote, "The FBI and intelligence were tasked to find out why Moscow was not responding to expulsions and sanctions." And what Comey is talking about here is that, of course, Obama expelled these ambassadors and put some sanctions on Russia because allegedly they're interfering in the election. And they expected a strong response from Moscow, but they don't get one. So they think, hey, what's going on here? Why isn't there some strong response from Moscow? And that's what they used as an excuse to justify unmasking Flynn. They're thinking, well, obviously, Flynn must have said something to the Russians to calm them down. Otherwise, they would be responding, and they didn't. And so the next thing that happens is Comey gets this transcript, gives it to Clapper, and Clapper goes right over January 4th and briefs Obama on this. Comey knew that Clapper would do this, and I wouldn't doubt but what he instructed him to do it. So you see, Comey is playing his own game. These people, what this tells you is that these people, even though they were in the cabal together, they did not trust each other as far as they could throw each other. Obama clearly doesn't trust Comey, and he's willing to throw him under the bus to save his ass. Comey clearly doesn't trust Obama and Rice on the administration side, and so he's going to make sure that he covers his ass. And in the CYA letter, it makes it look like Comey is the one who's the instigator, but in Comey's statement, he makes it sound like Obama is the instigator when he says that the FBI and Intel were tasked to find out why Moscow was not responding to expulsions and sanctions. Well, who would have tasked him and the Intel community to do that? Would have been Obama or the Attorney General. But the Attorney General Loretta Lynch says she doesn't know anything about it. And she likely did not, because silly Sally Yates says that the very next day, January 5th, she goes in there and it's Obama who tells her about the Flynn Kislyak phone call and that she was surprised. So clearly they went around. This was being run by Obama and the intel community. Intelligence and Obama and a couple of the shady people around him, probably Rice and Power and some others, were running the little show around the DOJ. So you can see where these people do not trust each other, and in an effort to cover their asses, are laying the blame on each other. And this is exactly what we're going to see an awful lot of. You're going to see a lot more of this when the indictments start coming down or the pressure begins to really build. This is when you're going to see a lot of people who are going to be making these types of statements, trying to cover their own butt while pointing the finger at others. That's exactly what's going to go on here. So that's what always happens. So it's, it's not new. I mean, this is, what happens in these types of things when someone's under the gun and they realize, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. What am I going to do? Well, first thing you try to do is cover your own butt. And the second thing you try to do is, throw people off your trail and put them on someone else's trail. And that's what Comey tried to do here. It's what Obama tried to do to Comey. And you can see it's what Comey did in return. He was well aware of what happened. So these people know that they're literally scheming against one another because they know what they're doing is wrong. We haven't talked very much lately about Alexander Down the Hatch Downer, but why don't we go ahead and do that? Why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about Alexander Down the Hatch Downer? Because there's a lot more going on here. And we know that because we recently got thanks to Rick Grennell, we got the electronic, the EC, the electronic communication, which lays out the reason why they launched Crossfire Hurricane. And of course we know because Papadopoulos is meeting with Downer. So let's focus on just one part of that EC, which is very important. And it says this, quote, "This information," and they're talking about the information that Russia had dirt on Hillary in the form of, or emails, or they had damaging information on Hillary. This is what Papadopoulos was alleged to have told Downer, which Downer then relayed to the embassy in London, to Elizabeth Dibble. So this is what they're referring to in this paragraph. "This information was provided through informal diplomatic channels from," and the name's redacted, we know it's Alexander Downer or the U.S. government, "to the U.S. Embassy." So this information was provided through informal diplomatic channels from, redacted, to the U.S. Embassy, the embassy's director of missions, Elizabeth Dibble. "It was clear from the conversation the legal attaché," that's an FBI agent working in London, "had with the director of missions, Elizabeth Dibble, that," redacted, "knows follow-up by the U.S. government would be necessary. But extraordinary efforts," here's the important part, "but extraordinary efforts should be made to protect the source of this information until such a time that a request from our organization can be made to," redacted, "to obtain this information through formal channels." Boy, you talk about getting busted. No wonder Durham went all the way to Australia to interview Alexander Down the Hatch Downer. Do you know what happened to Alexander Down the Hatch Downer? Here's what happened. They brought him into this plot, and I think it was probably Stefan Halper who enlisted him, or possibly someone in the FBI. Maybe Priestep, maybe Strzok, I don't know. But someone brought Halper into the game. They brought Halper into the game, and he was told, don't worry. You're never going to come up in this investigation. Your name will never be released. You will totally be kept out of this. We just need you to do this one favor. Sit down, have this conversation with Papadopoulos, then go to the mission and tell Elizabeth Dibble that Pops told you this. Now, Pops denies telling Downer this. My guess is if Durham really wants to know, he can probably get the phone records from Alexander Downer's phone during that day or that week of his meeting with Papagalopoulos. And he'll probably learn a lot of things. But clearly, Downer was told, don't worry. Don't worry. Because at some time, they're going to manufacture this information through formal channels. They're telling Downer, don't worry, because you're really just informal. So we really can't use you anyway. You're not coming through official channels. We just need you to plant the seed, and you're gone. No one will ever know. Just do us this favor, Alex. Don't worry, man. We got it all covered. You don't ever have to worry about this blowing up on you. You're going to be kept totally out of this. Your name will never be known. Because what we're going to do is that we're going to, at some point along the line, find someone else to be the source. We're going to trade you out for someone else. Someone else is going to give us that information. We're going to use them. So basically, to make it look like it came through a formal channel, such as maybe a Christopher Steele in his dossier, or maybe through some other asset. But Downer was told when they brought him into this thing that he wouldn't have to worry about anything, that this would never come out, that his name would never come out, that his being involved would never come out, and that they just needed him to do this favor, and that they were going to pull the switcheroo because this is unofficial intelligence, so it would never come through anybody who would investigate. Like Nunes's committee is looking at the Five Eyes intelligence, and just as Nunes have said, there's nothing here. There's no official intelligence. So they made sure that the way that Downer did it, he did it in such a way that it would not go through official channels. It was all unofficial. But what they were going to do is then sort of launder it into official channels, so that the information would then come through an official channel, through some official sources, and the unofficial stuff would just be swept away, covered up, or masked, if you will. So Alexander Downer has to be awfully pissed that he got caught up in this thing, and now that's probably the leverage that he is using and his government is using, is, hey, we were told that you were going to protect us here. That's the promise you gave us. Now, I know it was with the previous administration, but we were given a promise by the U.S. government, not this administration, but the previous, that if Downer did this favor, you would take care of it. You would protect us. They would never go through any intelligence, and we would be covered. And that's why they don't want to talk about it. My guess is Durham's already dug that out, but I can assure you that at this point, Downer probably lied to Durham. He'll never come clean. Never. And whether or not Durham can prove that, I don't know. If it were me, I would just go get a warrant, a search warrant, well, actually, I don't need one. He's a foreign citizen. Just go ahead and have the intel community do it for you. Go back and look at the phone records of Alexander Downer during that week of May 10th of 2016. Take a look at the conversations and the numbers on his phone and any pics or video, because Papagalopoulos says that Downer was holding up his phone the whole time. Well, we can't get to everything today, but I guess I do want to touch just on the latest Biden gaffe, because it's a bad one. Many of you have already seen this, where Quid Pro Quo Joe came out yesterday while doing an interview with some radio host who's a black guy, and he said, voters who were still undecided between himself and President Donald Trump, you ain't black. You ain't black. Well, that's very, very insulting on a lot of levels. Of course, first, Biden's press secretary came out and said he was joking, but then when Biden was asked about it later, he apologized and said he shouldn't have tried to be a wise guy. So they can't even get their, repair story together. This is going to be very, very damaging to Biden and the black vote, which is what he's been counting on. That's a bad gaffe right there. That's as bad a gaffe as I've seen him make, and I'm sure this one here is going to have legs for quite a few days until he makes his next big gaffe. But this guy is just, he's a disaster, man. They got to dump this guy. I'm telling you. It's got to dump him. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you. Bye.